Hey YouTube, Fran here from Officially Fran's, and this is the follow-up research video on the tree property that we looked at in the previous video. So if you missed that video, hit the link. It'll pop up somewhere. You can go back and watch it or wait till the end of this video. This video is made in two versions. There is a short version, which is around 3 or 4 minutes long, and then there's actually the long detailed version, which is about 55 minutes. So if you didn't mean to watch this one and you want to watch the shorter version first, all you have to do is also click on the link below and you can catch up with me over there. Make sure that I can do the things that I want with the property that I purchased. I always research the area first, the zoning maps. I go through a whole process for an area before I look at property in that area. Or if I look at property in that area that I like, I have to go backwards then and do the research. One of the things that I find really confusing is that most of the areas, when you want to open a business in that area, you literally have to buy the property and then you're going back to the city or township to get a permit or ask for permission. Well, I'm not a rich person. I can't just buy property and hope that I can do what I want. And I've realized in watching a couple of people on YouTube where they've purchased property and they wanted to do a tiny house village and then later find out that they can't because of some ordinance or some code. And that's the exact reason why you have to research the area first and research the property. Unless that property is just a good deal and you say, you know what, I'm buying those acres if I just have to sit on them. But I feel that research is key. So if you know that you want to build your tiny house, and this, let me go back. This isn't just for a campground or just for glamping or for a tiny house. This is with any building, not even a business. Even if you're building your house in an area, you see some acres, you want to build a house. It is good to know what those ordinances are. Now, if you're building your own house or if you're going to hire a contractor with subcontractors, knowing those rules will make your process go by faster. And that's what I'm going to try to show you, the process that I take when I am looking for a property. Okay, so I am going to start. Here's the area that I looked this weekend. And I'm going to go to Huron Township. I'm just going to search their zoning map. And even though I'm not looking exactly for the map, that's the number one thing that you look at when you're going out to look at property. 9 times out of 10, if you want to open a campground, and I'm saying campground, but I also mean a glamping business. I see a lot of people out there who are looking to open a glamping business and they want to purchase property for it. And they're running into a problem where they're trying to explain to whatever area what glamping is. And you don't even need to explain to them what glamping is. What you want to open is a campground. The style of camping will be glamping inside of your campground. So it's either you're going to do a private park, which in the ordinance there is some mentions to private park, but then there is mentions to actual campground. For me, while I could open this as a private park and go by a different set of rules, I want to go by the rules of a campground because I want to be registered with my state. And in order to be registered with the state, you have to follow their rules. So one of my goals is to be a legal campground that's registered with the state. There are a lot of people that privately have camping in their yards and they use different methods, whether through the farming ordinances and stuff like that. But I actually want to go through my state. Now, for the state of Michigan, anything under 4 sites, you do not have to get the permission from the state for those. Once you hit that 5th site, then you will be applying for licenses and permits through the state. And that's what I want to do. So in this area, which is Huron Township, this is their complete zoning map. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, a campground, they want it to be, is ordinance to be located in an agricultural district, which would be a white area on this map. So any of these white areas. Now I can tell you that the property that I looked at over the weekend was not in a white area. So let me make this a little bigger. Make sure you can see it. So the property that I looked at over the weekend was actually right here. This is the spot that property was in. Let me see if I can draw on this map. Don't look like it. But can I show it to you? Yeah. So this is the area that the property was in that I looked at this weekend. Now, I like this property a lot. It was 38 acres with a barn built on it. There is a house right here on the corner, but that is not included in the property. So they are sitting on a little bit over 1 acre right there. The frontage of this property was something like 1,037 feet, somewhere in there. But one of the things that I really like about this property in particular is its proximity to the park. And this park, as well as its connecting park over here, makes this a really good location. So from here to this park is less than a mile, might be 1.5 miles. You got to turn, and then you go right here and you enter into the park. But the park has, it's a metro park. It has everything in it. The park has a lot of amenities that I believe that people visiting would love to take part in. And anything that I'm not offering on the campground, this allows me to have that other resource. Now, this also allows this township to have visitors. Those visitors spend dollars, and those dollars go back into the community. So it is beneficial for me, but it is just as beneficial for this township, because every person entering that park, you have to pay if you don't have a sticker, an annual sticker, and I believe their interest is like $10. So if somebody wanted to go over and spend the day outside of the campground, or just do the nature trails or the water features, they can go over here to this park. There's also golf down over here in this park. And so again, it's a amenity for everybody. So I really like this property, but as you can see, this property is orange. And orange means suburban residential. So instead of just counting the property out, the first thing that I got to do is go and find out what can be done, what businesses, what can I do in suburban residential R1. As well as when I'm driving in my car looking at properties, I have multiple maps for the townships around me, so that I can tell if I am in a residential, if I'm in the business district, or agricultural district, because that's important to me. If I can come across that right property that's already in agricultural, that I'm sure would make my life so much easier. That's less paperwork and fees. That's what it is. It's less fees and paperwork to turn in, because there are certain things that you can automatically do. It's just, you might have to just go and say, okay, I'm going to be doing this and I need a permit for it, as opposed to with this not being in agricultural, and I'm going to say I'm almost sure that a campground has to be in agricultural, which means I'll be asking for either a permit, I'll be asking for a special purpose use or something like that, and all of those things cost money. So we've looked at the map. I'm trying not to go on and on, but it's hard when I get into this because it's a lot to explain. So that's the map for Huron. I'm going to do that same thing again, except this time I want to go into the Huron Township's ordinance page. Okay, so this is their ordinances. I'm looking for planning and zoning. Now, one of the things that I do in my spare time is if I found interest in an area, I will go back and read. I try to go back about 2 years. I will go back and read their meeting minutes and their agendas to see if someone else may have brought up the same idea that I have. And normally 2 years is what you can find on their website. So that's pretty much what I'll go through and read. It also shows me the process that they go through and kind of the back and forth. So what we're looking for in here is the zoning ordinances. Okay. And so we are going to just go right to what we're looking for. Now, I will print out their entire zoning and ordinance code to have it to read on the side. But to start off, I go right in to look for the information that I need. And you see right here, 530-107 addresses travel trailer parks and campgrounds. So I'm going to click on that, and I will go right to the area and this little section right here. So this is the section that talks about travel trailer parks and campgrounds. Now, what I do with this is, before I begin reading it or doing anything to it, I am going to take this, since it's such a small part, I'm going to take this whole section and I'm going to copy it. And now this is where my other sheet comes into play. So I'm going to go over here and copy this information. Okay, now that I have this copied, this is my method. It keeps me organized. What I do is I automatically take the code and I turn it red. This is, to me, red means that I have to read it. So now I'm going to read it to see if I understand it. So each specific campsite shall be identified by a number. Okay, it has to have a number. I go through and I highlight the important facts, and I normally use a purple or something. It has to be graded so that water will run off and not pond. That's the thing. And it has to have, okay, sufficient size to allow for parking. This is what's important in 530-107. All of the sites have to be identified by a number. They have to be graded so that the water will run off and not pond around the site. There has to be sufficient size to allow for parking of your recreational vehicle. There has to be a separate space for a picnic table and privacy between the sites. And the minimum size for a campground in Huron Township is 20 acres. That's all we need to know for that. So I've read that. I understand that. What I'll do now is turn that green because I'm done with it. Now, you think that would be it, but not even close. Because that told me what a campground needed. The question is, where can a campground be located? I'm going to look up this agricultural district because that's where I think it's supposed to go, because normally that's where I see it at. I will take this piece here that talks about an agricultural district. It's kind of hard to highlight on these. Also, I don't know about in your area, but these little boxes allow you to select the content so that you can print it, email it, download it, or even get updates on it. And there are some areas where I will, since I'm going to print the whole book, it really doesn't matter. What I want to do is I want to be able to highlight and take this also. Now, the intent and purpose of this district is to preserve the rural character. Okay, the primary use of the district is considered agricultural, cropping. So the main thing is that they want to, is designed to exclude or discourage uses and buildings that demand substantial public or private services. Okay, that's basically what all of the districts are. Agriculture wants it to stay agricultural, which means large properties for farming and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to keep this, and again, I'm going to give this little space. I'm going to turn it red, and then I'm going to highlight it green because I understood what it says. The thing about this agriculture district, again, we're still looking for what goes in it, and I think a campground goes in it. So these are the principal permitted uses. And if it's a principal permitted use, that is one less thing that you have to do in order to move your business into this area. So, of course, I'm going to highlight that and take that over to my note page and look through these items that are permitted, just in case my campground fits under another title. But it also shows me other businesses that are in this area. So I will be living on the property. So, of course, I can have a single family dwelling. That's good to know. We're going to take it with us. And then it says uses. So it also says uses similar to the above permitted principal land uses. Now, if I can make my campground seem similar to those above, not in function, but maybe in size, some other characteristic, that will give me the leverage or the leeway that I need when applying for this special use, if it's called a special use. Now we got to go down here. So these are permitted principal special land uses, which is very important because as you can see up there in the permitted principal use, campground is not listed. So maybe it's listed down here in the principal permitted special uses. And it also says that the following land uses are permitted subject to the provisions of 530-11. So that just tells us that what that tells us is that along with the Agricultural District Code of 530-24, we also will need to know 530-11. So again, over here on my note page, I've been copying that stuff over. I'm going to take that 530-11 and I'm turning it red because that means that I need to read it. So if I don't read it now while I'm going through this reminds me that I need to go back and read that later. And that's what I use to keep myself straight, because you'll see these codes, they just start coming in here, and before you know it, you're trying to keep up with them, and it can really get to be hard. So all of these things here, none of these actually fit into what I'm looking for. Here is one: outdoor recreation facilities, which is subject to 530.93. We're going to take that one because I don't know what an outdoor recreation facility is. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And that's another thing. One thing that I don't do is I won't click on the other one and jump to it. I finish my entire process out, because if you don't, you will forget where you are. And you don't want to, be missing any of this information. So I'm just copying that over under my permitted principal special land uses. And again, since now I've added another code over here, I'm going to turn it red because I got to go back and read that and see what it is. Maybe my campground can fit under that for the local township, but for my state, I know what the rules are. And I might even go back and do a video where I go through the state and show you how to look up their areas. Public and private areas for nature and study. Nah, I can't see that. 18, public and private parks. Okay, so that's that private park thing that I was talking about. So we're going to take that one. I'm going to copy that over there too. And private parks doesn't have a code next to it to tell us, what they mean by it, which means we'll have to do some extra digging on that one. So again, campground still is not there. Maybe I was wrong, y'all. So let's go to D. Oh, wait a minute, y'all. So the agricultural district did say campgrounds. I missed that. It was number 19. You know what? Let me go back. Oh, there it is right there, guys. And it is not. That is permitted principal special land use, but I missed it. There it is. I had it over there on my notes, so I saw it yesterday. Now, one other thing about this, you saw that when we originally looked up campground, let me go back over here to the notes. When we originally looked up campground, it said that it shall be on 20 acres, right? But now when we look at it again in the agricultural district, so when we look for it again in the agricultural district, it tells us that it has to be on 20 continuous acres. And that makes a difference. That means your acres can't be split up. Not 10 on this side of the street and 10 on the other side of the street. They have to be continuous. So that makes a big difference now that we know that. Permitted accessory land uses. Okay, let me take this one too. And as you can see, it has a code 530.42. We're going to copy this. Oops, I don't like that. We're going to copy this over, and there again is another code. You see how the codes are starting to stack up? Let's go. Home businesses, home occupations. Let's take both of these. And again, they both have codes on them. So off camera, they both have codes on them. They've both been copied over. What I'm going to do is my normal. And you may be able to find a system that works better for you, but I have come to use this quite a lot, and it works the best for me. Remember the property that I showed you? Suburban residential, R1. So back over here, when we get, now that we're basically completed with what we were looking for in agricultural, I have the things that I need to read about. I want this one too, ponds. Because one thing that I know that if I find a property that does not have a pond, I may want to put a pond on that property. And so it's good to know what's needed for a pond to help me make that decision. So here is R1 right up under there, Suburban Residential District, and it is code 53024. Again, I got to take this whole thing because it's hard to copy this first line on here. I can get rid of parts of it that I don't need later. And I'm going to turn that red. Now guys, as you can see, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 codes to go back and read. So like I said, this video might run a little long. Maybe I'll split it up into 2. But as you can see, the list starts to get quite heavy. And so this is why I basically use this system, because I used to sit here and read these things and I couldn't remember what I read or if I, actually gotten all the information that I needed out of it. So permitted land uses, I always take that so I can know what is permitted. And it says uses similar to permitted principal land uses. So I know I can build my house, of course, because it's called R1 Suburban Residential District. Now, this is where the house building part comes in, or for those people who are planning to build a house. You go out, you find a house, you find land, and you say, "Ooh, I want to build my house right here." And it happens to be one of these suburban residential districts. They have something called a rural residential district. And knowing the difference in those districts and what you can and what you have to build makes a difference. So that's where your tiny house comes in. If you read both of those, I can almost promise you that the minimum square footage on the homes that you build in those areas going to be somewhere around 1,200 square feet. The lowest that I've seen is 800 square feet. So that automatically tells you that your tiny house dream won't be permitted in that area. But that doesn't say that you can't do it. What it's saying is that there are other rules, there are other things that you're going to have to go through. So before you just buy a piece of property and say, I'm building this on it, no. Or you may say, I'm going to build me, 40 acres. I can put my house deep in the back of that 40 acres and I can live really close to all of the main things in the city, but I'm going to go off grid. Later on, when I go through these ordinances, I'm going to show you how hard it is to go off grid in areas. Understand this, they don't want you off grid. They can't collect everything from you if you're off grid. They need you to hook up to their water or to their sewer. If for nothing else, the fee that you have to pay to get the permit to hook up to it, and that steady stream of monthly income where even if you didn't use a drop of your water, you're going to get at least a $15 or $20 bill for the hookup. So going off grids, it's great. Everybody wants to do it, but they do everything in their power to keep you on the grid. Okay, so let's get back to this. So in the principal land uses, again, campground isn't there. So in the permitted land, in the permitted principal land uses, in the permitted principal special land uses, under R1 Suburban Residential, and it has a code, of course, 503-11. That's another one. I think that that's one code that we've already copied. Yes, we did. We copied that 50311 already from agricultural. So I'm going to turn it red again, but once I read it for here, it'll be red for there too. It's the same code, they're just restating it. You can have an adult daycare, you can have a whole church subject to this. So now when I see church in an area, that tells me, that gives me hope for what I want. Churches have people who have parking. And so that can bring a lot of people to an area easily. So my mind is telling me, if you can put a church there, then you should be able to put a campground. The traffic, the amount of people, although it's for a shorter amount of time, could be, depends. Some churches, they have Tuesday service and Bible study on this day and different things. So there's people always going and coming from it. I just copied bed and breakfast too, guys, because I want to show you why glamping does not work or my campground or glamping does not work in the bed and breakfast model. Now, I've read the bed and breakfast and a couple of others, so I'm sure it's going to follow the same suit. One of the things that they always say in bed and breakfast, they tell you how many you can have, and it's normally 4 or 6 or something like that. I've never seen an ordinance yet that says like over 10. It also, normally what I see in bed and breakfast is there cannot be a separate cooking area. The cooking area is in the home, and the owners have to live in the home to run the bed and breakfast. Home occupation and home business, there they go again. I am not going to copy them again because 53047 and 53048, we already have it copied. So we'll already know. And then there's my pond stuff. Okay, so it looks like my work isn't done here. Okay. So we're going to go back and find out where a campground can go in this district. But now I want to take you back over to my note page, because what I want to do is show you, before I get too far into this, what it is that I'm going to do with these notes. So as you can see, we read the first one. So it was red. I turned it green. Green means that I read it, I understand it, and I highlighted the key points in this. At some point, I will take all of these, I put them on a spreadsheet, and I put all of these key points basically on a checklist. So if I was to choose this property, actually put an offer in on the property, then I would go and prepare that next step. And that next step is because then I'll be going to the township to ask for the permission to actually run the campground there. And that means I'll be filling out their application. But because I know that these are things, all of these are points that I will make sure that I address in that application. And another thing is that when I put an offer in on a property, again, I am not a millionaire. I'm not even a thousandaire. So I'm not buying property sight unseen, and I don't even know if that property can be used for what I want. I want more than just to build my home on it. I want my home to be my business, and therefore my campground and my home will be located very, very close or on the same property. Which is why, even though most areas call for 20 acres for a campground, the minimum that I am looking for is the 40. 38, I'll take the 38 because that's 40, round it up. But when I put an offer in on a property, I put in contingencies. It is full of contingency. There is a contingency on being able to do lot splits. There is a contingency that I put on that says that the property, if they don't have a perk test done, I do a contingency for the health department for perk testing. I do a contingency on mineral rights, a contingency for the survey. If the property has not previously been surveyed, I will put a contingency on it for this main thing here. Can I do what I want to do on the property? If either of those things fail, those contingencies allows me to back out of the deal. That's if the seller accepts my offer. So just want you to know that I do write contingencies into my offer. So we've gone through this. The permitted principal special land uses. The following special land uses are permitted subject to 53011. Now is when I am going to take that 53011 and go find out exactly what it is. And there it is. So I can get something permitted as a principal special land use if it was one of those things that was on the list, which was, remember, it was the outdoor recreation facility, the public or private park. Those were the things that I picked out of there. But now here is where they tell you how. So you have to do an application. This is what has to go on the application. It tells you everything you do. This is a very important part because it tells you step by step how to apply for that special land use. Now for this one, I am not going to copy this onto my note page because this is special in itself. This is one of those things that I am going to actually print. So I'll click that box and I'll print it. But what I will do is go back over here to my note page, and now I'll tell myself, I skimmed over this and I am printing this for use later. I turn this black and then I turn it green. This because the green means that I saw it, and now black means that I have printed it to go back and read later. And it's a special piece. It's a whole basic document inside of itself. So now we're going to go look up the outdoor recreation and see what that's all about. We got to get rid of this one. Oh, active recreation. All active outdoor recreation facilities for adult or children, including but not limited to paintball, archery, motocross, or similar uses are subject to all of these different things. I don't think I fit into that. Let's look at passive recreation. Including but not limited to amusement park, carnival, golf courses, drive-ins, similar uses except public parks. And it just talks about parking and stuff. This one does not fit what I'm looking for. So I go back over here to my note sheet and I'm going to take this one. Oh wait, I think I did something wrong. I did. Oops, sorry guys. I did something wrong. This one, the letters stay black, but my highlighting is red because it's important. This one that does not pertain to me, I'm turning it green because, again, I read it. It does not pertain to me, so I'm going to turn it black. And that's just saying you read it, but it has nothing to do with what you're doing. And then a lot of times to remind myself, because as you can see, I get confused on how I use my own things. I'll cross through it. So I read this. I know a little bit about it. I can refer back to it from memory, but it has nothing to do with what I'm doing. Now this public parks and playgrounds, nothing's on there yet. So I'll have to go back to that. So now permitted accessory land uses. I'm going to go now and look that one up. Accessory building structures and uses. Okay. This is about the building itself. Telling you that it has to be architecturally compatible with the principal building. All multi-story detached accessory buildings in R2 and R3 zoning districts. Habitable space is allowed. Oh, okay. Habitable space is allowed within a detached accessory building, subject to the special land use criteria and procedures that 50311. So it's saying if you go and fill that application out and follow those steps, you have to ask. So this is where Airbnb, that kind of situation comes in for me. Accessory building structures and uses. You can use habitable space, but you have to actually apply and get approved for it. And here are the rules for that. No more than 50% of the total floor area, combined first and second floors where applicable, may be occupied as habitable space. So only half of it. So that makes sense if we're talking about converting a loft part in a garage or a loft part in our barn. The problem is you do have to ask for it. So you just say, well, I got this space out here. This would be great for me to make some extra income. A lot of people are doing it. You can do that, but know that there is a rule that you could be breaking. And breaking that rule, it just puts you in a position to have to deal with an issue. I don't know. You have the people there. You've seen a couple of these things on the news where people rented a room out to somebody on Airbnb and then the people wouldn't leave. And so like during COVID and even before COVID, there were people that just move in and they just won't go. And so you end up having to evict this person because they basically are seen as if they are a tenant. Using the guides of a zoning ordinance to do that makes it very clear and can be your standing ground in court as to this person isn't a tenant. You can say, I went to my township, I applied to use this habitable space. Using this, I was approved, and this person, this space, so this is not for what the person is trying to use it for. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that right, but I hope it kind of makes sense to you. And then to go even further, here it tells you, here's even better. So no, you can't just Airbnb this 50% habitable space. Okay, skip everything that I just said about that Airbnb tenant, but know that there is somewhere in this ordinance and in others that can help address that, because for this habitable space, it can only be occupied by an immediate family member: mother, father, daughter, son, grandparent, and grandchild. So this space is only used for family. So there is, unless you're renting it, unless you're going to let a family person be in it, nobody else. Right here. Under no circumstance shall the space be rented or caused to be occupied by someone other than an immediate family member. That's it. That says it all right there. And then it tells you where it has to be located with the proximity to your regular property. Now, the following detached accessory buildings are exempt from those provisions. If it's a shed and it's under 200 square feet and no more than 14 feet tall, you don't have to go and fill out that 50311. And it just goes more into, but you know what, I'm going to take this one. Say that after reading this, I needed this part of it. I would highlight the part that I needed out of it, because again, I've already, I have this information. I go back over here to my note page and find this one, which was 530-42. I go right up under that, and I'm going to put the notes in that I found for this one. And then now I can change this to green. And then here is the part that goes to this that I needed the most. It has to be compatible. I'll take that part out of it. So, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done reading that for now. Home businesses, 53047. Let's check that one out. So you want to open a home-based business. Here are the rules for that. So home-based businesses shall be permitted accessory land use only in the following districts. That's these districts. And of course, that's leaving out the business district and stuff like that. So it makes sense. A home-based business is permitted in these districts, but those are the districts where homes are supposed to go. So of course, now that is important. I'll take it over there. It's kind of important. It just kind of, one thing goes with the other. So I've taken that over to my note sheet. Now, a home-based business has to conform to the requirements of 50342, which we already know, because that was the one we just read, permitted accessory land uses, and 503 is 53042 and 53039. I don't think we've read 39. So we're going to take that. 39 is the schedule of area placement and regulations. Oh, that's a good one, y'all. So I'm going over here to my notes right here under home businesses. We're going to put that in here. I'm not going to highlight that yet because I'm not going to do that on camera, but just say that I had read through everything for home-based business. I'll turn it green because I'm sure I'll understand it. It has to conform to the requirements of 50342, which need to be read, number one. And then we already did 50342 up there, so we already know it's already read once. Now, this 50339, the schedule of height, this here is a good one because this one goes into play with that tiny house, building a house, anything like that on a property in an area. Where's it? There it is. So here's the attachment to it. This right here. This is the golden egg. Let's turn that bigger. Okay. So in an agricultural district, you have to have at least 10 acres. The width of your lot has to be at least 330 feet. You can own the maximum building height can be 2 stories, and it can be no more than 30 feet high. Here are your yard setbacks. This here is so important when planning your house. It's got to be at least 80 feet from your front. Your side yard has to have 50 feet of space on each side of it. And then you got these notes, G, H, I, J, and M. We'll go figure out what those mean later. That property that I looked at, it was here in R1. The minimum lot size is 1 acre. You got to have at least this 110 feet width. The lot has to be at the minimum of 110 feet wide. 2 stories, 30 feet, 50, 20, 50. The maximum lot coverage is 10%. Which makes sense. Kind of. Basically, you can't build a whole apartment-sized building on your 1 acre lot. That's basically what it's saying. So one acre is 43,560 square feet. So you can't build a 40,000 square foot house on 1 acre, basically. And it also has some notes with it too, right here. The minimum floor area of a dwelling units shall be as follows. A 1-family house, the minimum is 1,200 square feet. So a tiny house won't work in that area because you got to build at least 1,200 square feet. The other thing, so a tiny house can't go. You have to build at least 1,200 square feet. Now, if you built a 2-family dwelling on your property, you get a little closer, but each of those has to be 800 square feet. So a multi-family efficiency unit can be 500 square feet. But now we're talking about a multi-family unit, which, you know, I like that idea, except I understand that people in tiny houses, this doesn't work for you because it's taking away your mobility part of the tiny house. This is what you need to know if you want to build a house somewhere. It makes so much difference. You may be in there may be a property for sale in the agricultural district that is no longer 10 acres. And so you're thinking, well, if it's not 10 acres, but I'm still in the district, there are some rules that you have to read to understand what you can do. Normally, you want to be in an agricultural district. Normally, being in an agricultural district has tax advantages, which is why you want to be in an agricultural district. Makes sense. But that's enough of that one. Okay, so I'm going back over here to my note page. I've got to get it back on the other screen. Okay. So we read 3.9. I understand it, and it's just telling me about the building height and the minimum and maximums for what you're putting when it comes to the house. I want to go back to home business. It has to be operated solely within a single building or structure and be located on the same parcel as the operating family's residence. Family members and up to 3 additional employees shall be allowed to work in the business. So your family members and 3 extra people can work at your home-based business and be allowed to park on your property. I know, it's funny, right? You can't establish a home business on a vacant lot, of course, because there's no home there. It has to be a home. That home business cannot diminish the value of the land. It talks about outdoor storage. It talks about your hours. But in the end, you have to apply to use your home as that home-based business. Now later, I've already went through these ordinances, guys. So I've already taken the things out of these and I've already read all the pieces to it. I just wanted you to see the process that I go through. Now I'll go back over to my notes that's already turned green. This one for home occupation, remember that was under home-based business. This one is funny right here. This distinguishes a home occupation from a home business. A home occupation allows you to work from home. But that working from home has a very narrow scope before it turns into a home-based business. Home's occupation must be clearly incidental and secondary to the primary use of the dwelling unit used for dwelling purposes. Up to 20% of usable floor area of the principal building or up to 50% of an accessory building, which means you cannot turn your whole house into your home occupation. When you get into that part of it, it then turns into a home business. So they're really descriptive in here. And this is not just for this place. This is not just Huron Township. It's pretty much from area to area that I've looked at to where they try to make sure that people are, because if you were to do it as a home occupation, as you can see, it doesn't specifically tell you that you have to go through the step of that you have to apply using the 530-11. So I can just work from home as long as I'm not, endangering the health and the safety and the welfare and enjoyment of other people. I can't have any employees. If I have employees, or if I need to use more than 20% of the usable floor space in my house, it turns into a home business. Having this information, being able to walk into someone's office, you walk in with the knowledge. At my notes, when I don't understand something, let's just say I don't understand this home occupation, I will turn home occupation yellow and I will change that red to any other color that sticks out. And what I'm going to do is I will take the code and I will email that planning department. I will summarize what I think it means and allow them to correct me or summarize and tell me what it means a little better. And we will go back and forth until I have an understanding of what that code says. I can take those notes from that email. I will take them and attach it right to my research so that I have it later. The reason that I do it in email and I don't call to get the information is because I want that clarification and that information in writing. I do not want to go with your word. If you watch Judge Judy, that's hearsay. Trying not to go too far into this. This video is already long. If you want to see me break this down or do a deeper dive into this, let me know in the comments. What I'm going to do now is actually pull up my document. Now I'm going to go back to what I was talking about when I said how they don't want you to go off grid. 515-18 is talking about a water connection. It tells us that there's a connection charge and there's a reserve fund charge. I highlighted it for the campground, but it's the same for the house. The funny thing about this is if you build 515.25 tells you that you are required to hook into that city water. So you can't just go off grid in this area. The only way you can do that is if the service, so if that service is within 400 feet, you have to hook into it. If you're past 400 feet, you could possibly get away without using the city or whoever's water and use your own water system, which would mean you getting water trucked in or something like that. But this is really funny because they do what they can to keep you on their grid. Because again, they need you to pay this connection charge and this reserve fund charge and then the hookup charge and then the inspection charge. You going off grid is just taking this money that they were looking forward to. Now, that property that I'm looking at is 38 acres. So technically, I could place my house far enough back so that I can make myself outside of that 400 feet, right? Not so easy. Nope. Further down in the zoning, which I don't have it here on paper, but I did come across it, it talks about fire extinguishers. And so the fire extinguisher, if a fire extinguisher is not located, what did it say? Oh, I got to think about what it says. It basically says that your house has to be within 75 feet. No, it has to be within 150 feet of the front, located towards the front, if there is not a fire extinguisher located within a certain area. So if there's no fire extinguisher, I can't take my house back past the 400 feet unless I put in a fire extinguisher of my own. I mean, a fire extinguisher, a fire hydrant. Unless I put in a fire hydrant of my own. So that keeps you. And to put in a fire hydrant, you hook into the water system. But you can hook to the water system for the fire hydrant and not for the rest of the house. Could be a savings. I don't know. That's something that I did highlight in here with all this red, so I could go back and actually research that, because I thought it was so funny that you're gonna make me use your water, basically. And there, it's you know, like, again, it's just amazing. So this is the one that I did yesterday, and again, I went through all of those codes. And every code that I ended up coming across, I had to go back and read the stuff that went to that code. And there's where I circled the property. And this is all of my notes from yesterday. All of the reading, all of the areas. As you see, there is ponds. I ended up having to go through. There's that chart telling us everything that we needed to know about the sizes that we build in. That's the part that I took from it. It's your yard setbacks and everything. So remember when we were looking up agricultural district and I told you where it said that you had to have at least 10 acres? Well, if you look at it here, it tells you, and this was under that attachment that I didn't go all the way into, but it says a minimum area in square feet in the agricultural district may be reduced to 2 acres, provided that all requirements of this 503-26R1 suburban residential district shall be met. So if you have 2 acres in an agricultural district, as long as you can follow the rules of the suburban, as long as you can follow the ordinance of the suburban residential district, then you'll be okay in that area to build your house. But you wouldn't know that if you don't read the ordinances yourself. This will be one of those things that you fall into later and then you're surprised. And I even went further yesterday. I made it to signs. I know that in my campground, one of the things that I want to be able to have is a flea market or a vendor's area. So I also went into researching these different terms that they use, an artesian market, a flea market, to find out what I needed to do. Another thing that I want to do at my campground is I want to be able to host weddings, maybe repasses, those kinds of things. So I was looking for the actual terms in the ordinance when it comes to like banquet hall, assembly halls, and those kind of things. And the one thing that I found is when it comes to like a banquet hall, they can only be located in a general business district. But that does not mean that I won't ask, because again, if the district that I am in will allow a church, if it will allow adult foster care, if it'll allow those things, there may be some leeway for what I want to do, because we are talking about the same amount of traffic and use when it comes to people, in my opinion. So therefore, I will ask. It's up to me to. It will be up to me to make that information or to present that argument as to why, and to show them the comparison, and just be there to answer their questions, and go back and forth with them and talk about it. But those things are down the line. The main thing is the campground first, but I know that my plans to build out go into that, so therefore I want to be ready. I'll know exactly what I need for each piece of it, and it makes it really simple for me and what I'm doing.